My name is Matty J. I'm 27 years old, originally from the Philippines, but in the last 3 years,
Matty Juniosa was supposed to be a success story. He was supposed to be the kind of talent show contestant whose journey inspired millions of people around the world. He was the young Filipino-American singer who auditioned for Britain's Got Talent with nothing but a dream, a voice, and the hope that someone, somewhere, would believe in him enough to give him a chance. And for a moment, it seemed like that dream was actually going to come true. The judges loved him. The audience responded to his performances with standing ovations and thunderous applause. He made it through rounds of competition. He was building momentum. He was becoming known. People were talking about him. They were rooting for him. They were convinced that Matty Juniosa was going to be a household name, that he was going to break through in the entertainment industry and finally achieve the recognition that his talent deserved. But then something changed. The momentum slowed. The cameras moved on to other contestants. The spotlight that had been so bright suddenly dimmed. And Matty found himself in a position that many aspiring artists face but few people talk about. He was left behind. He was the contestant that people remembered for a moment, then forgot about just as quickly. He was the talented kid from a talent show, and in an industry that moves at lightning speed, that's often not enough. What happened to Matty Juniosa after his time on Britain's Got Talent is a story about the cruel reality of show business, about the gap between talent and lasting success, and about how quickly the world can turn its attention away from someone it once celebrated. The recent updates about Matty Juniosa reveal a young man struggling with the aftermath of brief fame, wrestling with the question that so many aspiring artists have to answer: what do you do when your 15 minutes of fame are over? How do you move forward when the entire world has stopped watching? How do you maintain your passion for music when the validation you received during your moment in the spotlight has evaporated? These are the questions that define the post-talent show experience for so many contestants, and Matty's story is particularly heartbreaking because he had so much potential, so much talent, so much to offer. And yet, despite everything, despite the exposure and the opportunities that came from appearing on such a massive platform, he has struggled to translate that moment into a sustainable career. This is not a story about a failure. It's a story about the brutal reality of an industry that builds people up and tears them down with equal speed. It's about a young man with genuine talent who discovered that being good isn't always enough. It's about the mental and emotional toll that comes with experiencing a taste of success, only to have it slip away. Matty Juniosa's journey after Britain's Got Talent reveals truths about the entertainment industry that most people never see. It reveals what happens to the contestants after the cameras stop rolling, after the judges stop deliberating, after the world has moved on to the next big thing. This is Matty Juniosa's story, and it will break your heart. Matty Juniosa grew up in a household where music was more than just entertainment. It was a lifeline. His family immigrated to the United States from the Philippines with very little, carrying with them the hope that America would provide opportunities that weren't available back home. They worked hard. They sacrificed. They dreamed of better days for their children. Matty's parents understood that education and talent were the keys to breaking out of poverty, to creating a better life for their family. They encouraged their children to pursue their passions, to develop their skills, to never stop reaching for something greater than what they currently had. For Matty, that passion was singing. From a young age, he showed an exceptional gift for music. He had a voice that was mature beyond his years, emotional and powerful, capable of conveying deep feeling and vulnerability. He grew up listening to artists who had overcome obstacles and achieved great success through their talent and determination. He watched performances on television and dreamed of one day performing on stages just as large, in front of audiences just as massive. He practiced constantly. He took lessons. He performed in school talent shows and local competitions. He sang in church. He performed anywhere he could, building experience and confidence with every performance. His family saw his potential and supported him completely. They understood that pursuing a career in music was risky, that the path was uncertain, and that success wasn't guaranteed. But they also understood that Matty had something special, something that couldn't be ignored or suppressed. He had a gift, and it deserved to be shared with the world. When the opportunity came to audition for Britain's Got Talent, Matty saw it as his big break. This was the moment he had been waiting for. This was the platform that could launch his career into the stratosphere. Millions of people watched Britain's Got Talent. The judges were industry professionals with connections and influence. If he could impress them, if he could deliver a performance that moved them, that made them believe in him, then everything could change. His entire life could be transformed in a single moment. That's what talent shows promise to their contestants. That's the dream they sell. One audition, one performance, one moment of brilliance, and your life could be completely different. Matty prepared meticulously for his audition. He chose a song that showcased his vocal range and emotional depth. He worked on his presentation, his stage presence, and his ability to connect with the judges and the audience. He was nervous, of course. This was the biggest opportunity of his life so far. When he walked on that stage, he carried with him the hopes and dreams of his entire family. He carried the weight of all those hours of practice, all those performances, all that dedication and hard work. And when he opened his mouth and began to sing, something magical happened. The judges responded to him. The audience responded to him. There was a moment where it felt like everything was possible, like the universe was conspiring to give this talented young man the break he deserved. The judges praised his voice. They talked about his potential. They advanced him in the competition. For a moment, it seemed like Matty Juniosa's life was about to change forever. The initial response to Matty's audition was overwhelmingly positive. Social media exploded with clips of his performance. People were sharing his videos, commenting on his talent, expressing their support and excitement about his future. He was being discussed on entertainment blogs and websites. He was gaining followers on social media platforms. He was becoming recognizable. For the first time in his life, Matty experienced what it felt like to have people paying attention to him, believing in him, rooting for him to succeed. It was intoxicating. It was validating. It was everything he had dreamed about for so many years. The attention felt real because it was real. Thousands of people genuinely appreciated his talent and wanted to see him succeed. But as the competition progressed, something began to shift. Other contestants captured the judges' attention. Other performances went viral. The narrative of the show moved in different directions. Matty continued to perform well, but he wasn't advancing as quickly as he had initially. The momentum that had carried him forward began to slow. The judges, while still complimentary, seemed less enthusiastic than they had been during his first audition. The audiences, while still responsive, weren't giving him the same level of emotional engagement that they had shown earlier. The gap between the hype he had received and the reality of where he stood in the competition became increasingly apparent. He wasn't failing. He was just becoming ordinary in the context of a show designed to find extraordinary talent. This is where the heartbreak begins. Because what happened to Matty after his initial success is what happens to countless talented people every single year. The attention faded. The viral moments stopped coming. The social media engagement declined. New contestants emerged who captured the public's imagination more powerfully. The cycle of a talent show competition moved forward, and Matty found himself in a position that was neither success nor failure. He was in limbo. He had tasted the spotlight, had experienced the validation of thousands of people believing in him, and then he watched as that spotlight moved elsewhere. The emotional whiplash of that experience is something that very few people outside the entertainment industry truly understand. After his time on Britain's Got Talent, Matty faced the reality that many aspiring artists face: how do you maintain momentum after a talent show? How do you convert brief exposure into a sustainable career? The answer, unfortunately, is that it's incredibly difficult. For every contestant who launches a successful career after a talent show, there are hundreds who fade into obscurity. The exposure alone isn't enough. You need record labels willing to invest in you. You need managers and agents willing to represent you. You need the right connections, the right timing, and the right combination of factors all aligning perfectly. Matty had talent. He had exposure. But he didn't necessarily have all the other pieces that are necessary for long-term success in the entertainment industry. The recent updates about Matty Juniosa reveal a young man who has been struggling with the aftermath of his talent show experience. He hasn't disappeared entirely, but he also hasn't achieved the level of success that his talent would suggest he should be capable of achieving. He continues to perform, to post content on social media, to try to maintain his presence in the entertainment world. But the energy is different now. The sense of inevitability that surrounded him during his Britain's Got Talent moment has been replaced by a sense of uncertainty. He's working harder than ever, but the results aren't matching the effort. He's facing the same struggles that countless other talented people face: limited opportunities, difficulty securing representation, and the challenge of building a fanbase in an oversaturated market. What makes Matty's situation particularly heartbreaking is that it reveals the fundamental flaw in how our society treats talent show contestants. We build them up in moments of excitement and emotional connection. We celebrate them. We share their videos. We post encouraging comments. We create a brief moment where they feel seen and valued. And then we move on. We forget about them. We become invested in the next contestant, the next story, the next moment of viral success. The contestant is left behind, trying to figure out how to maintain a career based on 15 minutes of television exposure. It's a cruel system, and Matty is just one of thousands of talented people who have experienced its brutal logic. The mental health toll of this experience cannot be overstated. Matty went from being celebrated to being forgotten in a relatively short period of time. He experienced the high of validation from millions of people, and then he experienced the low of watching that validation evaporate. He had to reconcile the gap between his own belief in his talent and the world's apparent indifference to that talent. He had to continue pursuing his passion for music while dealing with the disappointment of not achieving the success that seemed so possible after his audition. This is not just a professional struggle. It's a deeply personal and emotional struggle that affects every aspect of his life. Friends and family members who had celebrated his success during his time on the show now ask him regularly when he's going to make it big. The assumption is that success should have followed automatically from his appearance on the show. When it didn't, the questions became tinged with disappointment or confusion. People wonder if he's still pursuing music, if he's given up, if he's found another job. The pressure is immense. He's carrying not just his own expectations but also the expectations of everyone who believed in him during those brief weeks when the world was watching. He's dealing with the weight of potential that hasn't yet been realized and the fear that it might never be realized at all. Despite these challenges, Matty has continued to pursue music. He hasn't given up entirely, though there are moments when giving up might feel easier. He performs when he can. He posts content on social media, trying to maintain the connection with the audience he built during his time on Britain's Got Talent. He's taken on other work to support himself financially, because the reality is that talent alone doesn't pay the bills. He's navigated the rejection and disappointment that comes with trying to build a career in the entertainment industry. He's learned that exposure doesn't equal success and that viral moments don't necessarily translate into lasting fame or financial stability. The recent updates about Matty Juniosa paint a picture of a young man who is still fighting, still trying, still believing in his talent despite facing obstacles that would have broken many people. But it's also a picture of someone who is exhausted, who is struggling to maintain hope in the face of limited opportunities, who is grappling with the reality that the entertainment industry doesn't always reward talent the way that it should. His story is heartbreaking not because he failed, but because he succeeded in the way that the system demanded, and the system still wasn't enough. He did everything right. He had genuine talent. He delivered strong performances. He connected with audiences. And yet, success remained elusive. That's the tragedy of his story. What Matty's story teaches us is something that the entertainment industry doesn't want us to understand. Success isn't purely meritocratic. Talent alone isn't enough. Hard work alone isn't enough. The right connections, the right timing, the right amount of luck, and the right combination of factors all have to align perfectly for someone to achieve lasting success in this industry. Matty had talent. He had determination. He had support from his family and from the audience members who believed in him. But he didn't have all the other pieces that are necessary for translating brief exposure into a sustainable career. He fell into the gap that exists between being good enough to appear on a major talent show and being famous enough to secure meaningful opportunities afterwards. The heartbreak of Matty Juniosa's recent updates is that they reveal the cost of this system. They show what happens to talented people when the spotlight moves away. They demonstrate that viral moments and social media engagement, while exciting, don't necessarily translate into record deals or touring opportunities or the kind of sustained success that allows someone to build a career in the entertainment industry. Matty is still out there, still working, still trying. But he's doing it largely invisible to the world that once celebrated him so enthusiastically. The people who loved his audition have moved on to other contestants, other shows, and other sources of entertainment. Matty is left to figure out how to move forward with his career in a world that has already forgotten about him. There's also something particularly poignant about Matty's situation because he represents the dreams of so many immigrants and children of immigrants. His family came to America looking for opportunities, believing that hard work and talent could lead to success. Matty embodied that dream. He worked hard. He developed his talent. He took the opportunity that came his way on Britain's Got Talent. But the American dream, or in this case the international dream of success through talent and determination, didn't work out the way that the narrative suggests it should. He's still working, still pursuing his passion, but he's doing it without the validation or recognition that he experienced during those brief weeks on television. The gap between expectation and reality is the source of much of the heartbreak surrounding his current situation. What's important to understand about Matty Juniosa's recent updates is that they're not unique. This is the experience of most talent show contestants. The vast majority of people who appear on shows like Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, or other similar platforms don't go on to achieve major success. They have their moment, they experience the thrill of recognition and validation, and then they return to their regular lives, often carrying the disappointment and disillusionment that comes with unrealized potential. Some of them continue to pursue their passions in smaller venues or through different platforms. Others move on to different careers entirely. But very few of them achieve the kind of sustained success that their initial exposure suggested might be possible. The tragedy of Matty Juniosa's story is that it reveals the cruelty embedded in how our entertainment industry operates. We celebrate talent in moments of high emotion and viral excitement, but we don't build the infrastructure necessary to support that talent after the moment has passed. We move on to the next contestant, the next story, the next source of entertainment. We've already forgotten about the last one. Matty continues to sing, to perform, to share his music with the world in whatever ways he can. He's resilient. He's determined. He's refused to give up entirely despite facing disappointment and limited opportunities. And that resilience is admirable. But it's also heartbreaking, because a young man with genuine talent should have more support, more opportunities, and more recognition than the system currently provides. His recent updates remind us that behind every viral moment on a talent show, there are real people with real dreams, and the story doesn't always end the way that they hoped it would.